So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. This matrix, this word matrix, now becomes the new pattern. It is the pattern for the level of Christian Science, for the whole level of Christian Science. And you can begin to imagine the scalings, that all the scalings that are coming from this this pattern, this great pattern. What a stupendous thing. It is the whole level now. The whole level becomes a pattern. And we can touch that matrix at any point, and we touch a part of that pattern, an accentuation of that pattern, and at every accentuation we can find a whole world, a whole universe waiting to be expressed, or in expression by implication. So I thought I would just take the first vertical with you, just to give you a feel for it, so that you don't say, well, actually it's all written in the deep structure language of the capitalized terms, and so perhaps some of us don't speak that very well yet, actually none of us speak it well enough that we could get along without the scientific metaphysics to explain it, the uncapitalized terms to explain it, and so we will do that now, and get a feel for that first vertical. Actually, we're looking then at what we first saw. What we saw is the first pattern, the first touch of the pattern, right, of the word. And it's as though to show us that that pattern can be analyzed through the four into its four fundamental aspects as a creative order, so that we would see that that pattern has a creative basis, that built into the pattern of the word is a creative basis. Built into the pattern of the word is what we call the Christ selfhood. We'll talk about that in a minute. Built into the pattern of the word is its own pure demonstration. And built into the pattern of the word is the God being. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, that just makes me feel so good. That is so beautiful. And actually, I would have to say that we could see that, you see, with each one of the orders there. We could look at the Christ. What do we have? Because we have capitalized terms, we have the pattern of the Christ, the pattern of the scalar, and built into that whole scaling principle of the Christ is a creative basis. See where I get that? Creative basis. Every one of these exquisite patterns or orders has a creative basis in it, from which then, you see, if we go back to the Christ, then we would go to the Christ as the Christ and see that that scaling principle has the Christ selfhood within it. Let's just talk about the Christ selfhood, because the Christ selfhood is that which is going to take the creative basis and calculate with it, recalculate it, rearrange it, reorder it. Then we come to the third point, say, in the Christ, at the point of Christianity, where we would see that the order of the Christ, which is the pattern of the scalar, has within itself its own pure demonstration. So John Dorley would have to ask himself, what is it in that Christ order that expresses the demonstration of the Christ order? What capitalized terms are needed to express what the Christ order demonstrates, what the Christ as Christianity is? See? And then he would go on and would see that there is a science aspect, that Christ is science, that in the order itself is something that has the most being, has a being sense about it, a God being sense, as though at the root of everything, the root of the creative basis, the Christ selfhood, the pure demonstration, is the beingness of the whole order. See? That's the God being. And so we would see that there's a God beingness in the scalar. So then the universe of Christianity, if we take that Christianity order, as we said, as the capitalized terms being the pattern for the infinite universe of all scalings, the infinitude of reflection of the pattern, that universe has within itself a creative basis. What it needs to have in order to be what it is, in order to express itself in the Christ, to demonstrate itself in Christianity, and to be what it is in science. So at the point of the Word, Christianity as the Word, are those elements that are necessary for that universe to be creative as what it is. And then he could see that in that universe, the pattern for that universe is the Christ selfhood, the elements that are necessary in order to recalculate, to express, in other words, to recombine the creative basis, to take the creative basis and calculate it, reproduce it in a new way, in a new form, bring out a new form of it. See? And then where are all those new forms of the creative basis found, kept, held, contained within Christianity as Christianity? Here it's just Word Christ Christianity, Word Christ Christianity, over and over again. So it's in Christianity as Christianity, then, that we get the pure demonstration of Christianity. And finally, he would ask, what is the beingness of that infinite realm of reflection? And that he would find in the science horizontal at the point of Christianity as science. And so we find the very same thing in what we have looked at with the science order? You remember? We actually saw it already. He saw that first. He saw it first. I mean, he saw that before he saw it for the other three orders. That the creative basis is very clear, isn't it, in science? What's the creative basis in the science order? The numerals of infinity. Just as we said, well, we can't do anything until we get our numerals right, our identities of being right. Yeah. And then, at the point of science as the Christ, what is the Christ selfhood there? What is it that can express those numerals? Can take just those few numerals and express them without measure. That's the divine infinite calculus that does that. And thirdly, what is the outcome of that, the realm of that? It's a realm of pure demonstration of spirit. Realm of the fourth dimension. And then everything being gathered up to the highest point of science as science itself, to one principle, one omni-active principle. And you really have, in the science order, at the point of science as the word gathering up the whole of the word order into soul and life, to numerals of infinity. Science is the Christ gathering up the whole of the Christ order, saying, yes, I can show that to be, I can take the essence of that as the divine infinite calculus. And science is Christianity taking the whole of the Christianity order and gathering it into mind and love as the fourth dimension. And science is science taking the whole of itself, the whole of its own order, and therefore everything else in the matrix into one principle. Is that not exquisite? Is that beautiful? Yeah. So let's take, we'll just take the place values of the capitalized terms in the word vertical there, just to get a feel now, looking back to the pattern of the word, that pattern of the word, to see now how the four are over-patterning it to show a primal basis, a creative basis in that word. That will be brought out by mind, spirit, and soul. These are the primal elements that are necessary for the whole order to be what it is. It is, with mind, spirit, and soul, the initial order for all creativity. For all creativity. It is the initial order for the correct statement about anything. That everything begins with mind. That all is mind. Mind is all. That there is only one mind. This is the start of everything. This is the basis of everything. There is but one mind. And the moment I say but, I hear spirit, spirit. There is only, and I hear spirit, then this is spirit. Spirit must be there. I can't just say there is mind, because the possibility of any other kind of mind, mind is not qualified, you see. It needs to be qualified by spirit. So mind is spirit. We must have mind and spirit at the root of everything, at the root of creation, the root of being, the deep structure reality, at the root of the deep structure reality of being, capital B, and being, small b, is that mind which is spirit. And that mind which is spirit is soul. It does not change. It will not change. It is unchangeable. It cannot change. It will never not be the mind that is spirit. It will always be the mind that is spirit. So you hear how you have those three that belong together. They must be together. They are a unit. And this is the basis of creation. Basis of everything. Then we come to John Dorley characterized that, you see, as order. That's fundamental order. The whole order of the word expresses order, but this is the root of order. And then we come to a point that he would call identity. It's the word as the Christ. So we see that the Christ selfhood takes that primal basis, that creative basis, and is able to do something with it. The Christ says this basis is identified with the principle. It has identity with principle, with the infinite principle, with the divine principle. You hear the identity of soul now. The unchangeability becomes the identity, and soul says mind, spirit, and soul are identified with only one thing, with the divine principle. This principle is the creative principle now. It's a creative principle, and there is absolute coincidence with the creative basis, with its principle, and that principle is operating. Principle is always operating. You hear the Christ, touch of the Christ. It's always operating. It is dynamic, dynamically operative as life. It is bringing forth the individuality of that creative basis. It is individualizing that creative basis. You hear life? It's individualizing the creative basis. And so we come to the word as Christianity, to the pure demonstration of that. So the pure demonstration that comes out of that is the infinite individuality of life. And it is that life which is conscious of itself as truth. It is that life which is absolutely true. If you know what true means, it means coincident with, that the outcome is consistent with, coincident with the input. Truth takes care of that. Truth says, I make sure that the input of mind, spirit, and soul is being brought out truly, that everything is true to that, is coincident with that, so that there's no discrepancy, no departure from the pure line of creation. And what we get is a pure line of creation coming out. Nothing ever can come in. There isn't anything else that comes in that could pollute or dilute that outcome. It's a pure demonstration of the creative basis through the Christ selfhood. And then finally we come to the word as science. And science, as I've said so many times these days, is that science will always say word, Christ, Christianity, they are not three things. They are one. They are one thing. It's not a development. It's not even really a process, but science wants to lift even the process sense into a being sense as much as it can. And therefore to show that actually word, Christ, and Christianity were implicate in life, truth, and love. Implicate in life, truth, and love. And so the God being, or the omnipotence, as John Dorley would call it, of science as science is to show that really science gathers up the word and sees it as life, says that's life. Gathers up the Christ, see? Word is word, life. Word is Christ, truth. Word is Christianity, says that's love. Now I can gather that all back into its implicate order, into the oneness of life, truth, and love. So that's the first order of the word, looking at the pattern in a completely different way. I don't know if you like that or not. It makes my heart sing. It makes me sing. It's a comfort to me to hear that. Thank you, me, for saying that. Whoever said that, thank you. I think it's so quiet. It's so peaceful. It's taking us away from all the words, isn't it? You see that on that inductive way, on that ascending way, we're taken away from all the words, the chatter, the explanations, the explications, toward the deep, deep reality itself. So we use the least words we can to explain what is that deep reality. That's what we were doing. And you feel the depth of that reality, don't you? Can't you feel that? That underpins everything, that word just underpins everything. Well, we have 5 minutes to just tell you the rest of the story, or a little bit more about the four, the pattern of the four. After Mr. Dorley had seen all of this, that we call the word matrix, in the middle of the 1940s, he suddenly had a new interest in the days of creation. Up to then, he had only seen 7 days. He saw 7 whole tones in the days of creation. But in 1946, when he was looking at it again, he discovered the subtones within the days of creation. I can't help that really always astounds me, that he would have seen the Dorley matrix before he saw the subtones in the days of creation. But that was the order. So he could see really what we will show you here. that there are 29 subtones in the days of creation, that the first tone of mind has 3 subtones, the second tone 3, the third 5, the fourth 5, the fifth 4, the sixth 7th, and the 7th 2. 29 subtones, and this is a work, a class that is well worth taking, a class on the 29 subtones. And when you take that class, whenever you take it, whenever you do that investigation, perhaps on your own, you will then find that Mr. Dorley also began to see the 4. He then began to see the 4 coming into the 7 days. And I think it shows here, you see that? That we don't only have 29 subtones here, but we have the delineation of those breaks where Mr. Dorley could see that yes, this indeed was the Word, but that the Word itself was then again patterned by the Word, the Christ, Christianity, and science. So again, you have an instance of the over-patterning of the 7 with the 4. Following that, of course, he was working on the Bible, presenting the Bible, the science of the Bible, and was giving, in that respect, the 1,000-year periods, going through the 1,000-year periods. And he also found that the 1,000-year periods have the 4, have the calculus 4 within them, showing really that the 7 are never without the 4, that they are calculus-driven, that the Word is calculus-driven, so that the days of creation are calculus-driven. It takes the human sense right out. It takes any residue of the human sense out that would say, I have to make the 7 work. I have to take the 7 and do something with them, or I have to make something of my life. I have to be sure my life goes somewhere, and so I find a direction for it, a goal for it, and then I direct everything toward that goal and try to gather up enough momentum within myself to make the whole thing work. But we can see that the 7, the creative order of the Word, already has the 4 within it. So we can't do more than that. All we can do is to, as the Christ order would show us, to yield, to give way, or as the Word order would say, to let there be light. So we could go back and really look at all of those 4s, or all of those 7s that we saw at the beginning of this week. I say the beginning of this week because it seems like it's been a week, because we have seen a great deal. But we could go back to all those scalings of the pattern of the 7 and see that actually they have the 4 already within them. We take the whole of cosmological time and could focus in a little bit more carefully, a little bit more deliberately on those 7 eras, we would find that they're calculus-driven. Everything's calculus-driven. That, what else did we look at? All of the different orders, or scalings of the Word order, those orders would have the 4 within them. You can take the order of scientific obstetrics, and you know that that's in the 7. And if you look carefully into those 7, you find that they are calculus-driven, that the whole birth process has the calculus behind it, so that we would see that spiritual birth running through from mind to spirit to soul, principle, life, truth, and love. You see beginning with our familiarity, that we must be familiar with the obstetrics taught by this science, that we must become one with mind and come out from mind and so forth. And the result of that, if you look more carefully at that order, you find that actually the four are there all along. So that if you know that development from mind to love, you would see that actually it is scaled again by the calculus, by the four, namely to show that in that order is an initial point where there is the bringing forth, how to bring forth an idea, showing you how to bring forth an idea. And this is all to do with thought. It addresses thought. It tells you what to do with thought, how to align it, and how to attend the birth properly by detaching mortal thought, you see, from its material conception. That this will assure a safe and natural birth. So it's a how-to. It's a very basic stages, almost you could say a creative stage, a creative basis for giving birth. And then the Christ comes in the tones of principle and life. The Word covered the tones of mind, spirit, and soul, and now with principle and life we see the Christ showing the power of the idea to eliminate error, and thought moves to idea. And so you see that principle talks about the gathering of the new energy, that the idea will gather strength, but that it can injure nothing in its surroundings. It will use everything in its surroundings to support that birth, to make that birth come to fulfillment. And life that says a spiritual idea cannot have an element of error. There's nothing that has entered in, that everything has been removed that could possibly cause there to be an error. All of the material conceptions and mortal thoughts have been divorced from each other and have dropped away, and so a spiritual idea is coming forth which has not a single element of error to it, and this is a truth in itself that will remove anything that would appear to be offensive. And then Christianity, the third tone, comes in, and it is characterized through the whole tone of truth in the paragraph of scientific obstetrics, which shows us the bigness of an idea. You remember when we touched the Christianity order, we said this is going to show us the bigness of an idea, or the bigness of a scale, the greatness of a scale. Here it's the greatness of an idea, and that greatness is that an idea is always in its synonym, is always in the synonym for God. And so it says there that the new idea is conceived and born of truth and love. It's clad with white garments. It has all of the seven. This white garments is a way of saying that it reflects all the light of God. In other words, all the light of the seven synonymous terms. Everything that the seven synonymous terms have, the idea has. And its beginning may be meek, but its growth is sturdy, and its maturity will not decay. So when this new birth takes place, the Christian Science infant is born, and is born of the Spirit. It's a spiritual birth. It's a birth that belongs to Spirit. It's an idea that belongs to Spirit. It is of God, and so science can come in then to that order at the point of love and give us the highest statement, the highest sense about this birth, that sense which will be the closest to the beingness of the whole issue. And that beingness is that the synonym for God alone is being. There is only the synonym for God. And love says, that this can cause the mother no more suffering. So we see that there really isn't anything outside giving birth, and there isn't a birth that is outside or that comes outside, that everything is within love, going on within love. So that by this we know that truth is here and has fulfilled its perfect work. Thank you. That was talking to us, huh? It was talking to me. Okay.